I call Barbara Kuriga, 5 minutes.
Mr Speaker, it's great to be given the opportunity today to stand here and speak on the Gambling Amendment Bill number 2, set down here for its third reading. And I'd like to thank the Select Committee for their work. I'm in a position too to endorse the member for New Plymouth's comments about the culture and cafe centre of the world. So I'd endorse that, Jonathan. Okay, so gambling is one of the industries within New Zealand that has the potential to cause harm and devastation to many families, to many individuals and to many communities. And previously the Gambling Act as it stood was in itself very large and complex, and there were a number of issues that were identified which meant a review was needed. The Gambling Amendment Act number 2, which I'm speaking on today, contains various amendments alongside technical policy developments to clarify the original legislation and remove any vague confusion. Having been through the Select Committee process and receiving a number of recommendations, it is clear that the main amendments here are to minimise the harm resulting from gambling in our communities. And this falls in line with the priority of this national government, whose purpose is to both control the growth of gambling and minimise the harm that's caused. And Mr Speaker, the original Gambling Act in 2003 brought about major reform to the gambling sector with a shift in focus which highlighted the need for a minimisation of those harms associated. The government recognises and appreciates that harm, and it's not an issue to be taken lightly. Gambling is a destructive form of addiction and affects many New Zealanders. This Act therefore imposes a levy on the proceeds of gambling to deal with, and currently over $55 million in 3 years has been raised to fund those frontline counselling services that are necessary and essential for mitigating the harm and damage that problem gambling can cause in communities. This is a significant and commendable effort, and the dedicated professional services that exist for those diverse and affected groups in our communities is a reflection of the motivation and intent of this government to alleviate the harm caused. The amendments put forward and recommended by the Select Committee will make sure that the regulatory framework operates as it is supposed to, and that gambling operators know their obligations to both themselves and the communities who they represent. This government's policy is focused on minimising the harm caused by gambling, while at the same time maximising the returns to the community. Mr Speaker, the amendments to the Act as implied by the Select Committee will tighten the regulations around the monitoring of gambling. Those organisations and people who receive grants from those gambling societies are therefore able to be kept accountable with how they distribute their finances. Gambling is a money-making business, there is no doubt about that. However, the amendments in this bill are consistent with the aims of the Act and minimising harm. Gambling policy is and always has been a balancing act. Many individuals gamble in a responsible manner and have fun while doing so. Of note, these gambling societies in our community have raised over $637 million for their respective communities in the year 2013. Again, this is a significant and commendable effort, and it cannot be ignored that this money is going back into the community. However, Mr Speaker, one of the major focuses of the government here is to ensure that the original Gambling Act can be accurately and rightfully enforced. In summary, yes, gambling does damage families and communities. These amendments to the Act will tighten the regulations around monitoring of gambling and minimise the harm resulting. These changes to the Act are intended to resolve any confusion about meaning and reinforce to the industry how important aspects of the Act work and exactly who they are accountable to. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Members, this debate is concluded.